So today's topic is about the email deliverability best practices, right? We all send emails, especially when it comes to nonprofits. I've seen the organizations sending out donor communications and newsletters and whatnot, and spend a lot of time on the emails. But how do we really get most out of it, right? Make sure that it's working out for your organization and getting the right value of your time and the money. Yeah. So let's spend some time here talking about a few of the very important topics that we typically miss out, right? Highlighted three points here. I mean, there are many, but I think it's best to really focus on the crux of the topic, so which is the deliverability itself, what it means. When you're sending out emails, first and foremost thing that you would want to worry about is, hey, I want to deliver this email to my inbox, not to the spam folder, right? How do you really get to that level? With the invention of the internet and a lot of commerce around, the email server, the recipient servers have become very intelligent, and with Gmail coming into the picture, they are notorious to really make your email put your emails into the spam folder, even if they really look at the content that's being fishy or using a spammy words and whatnot. So it's an art, and at the same time, it's a best practice that you got to follow. It takes time and effort to really make sure that you're delivering your emails to the inbox. How do you do that? And we can talk about that. And the second most important thing is the reputation. So when you're sending out emails as an organization, you got to be reputed, meaning like your domain address need to be reputed, and also the IP address that you're using also should be reputed. It should not be blacklisted. How do you make sure it's happening, and how do you really monitor that, right? And why is the reputation important? Again, it's the same thing, goes back to the same story. The spammers can spoof your email and act as if it is you or your domain, and they can spam the word, and making sure that your domain is not compromised and the IP address is not compromised. You got to monitor that. That's the key thing. And the third thing is the compliance. Again, not really putting a lot of heavy terms here. The GDPR and CAN-SPAM, all it talks about is making sure that your emails are being compliant, especially when you're sending out emails to European countries or sending out emails to the US local or Canada. Every country will have its own compliance rules. At least knowing what those are and making sure that you're following those compliance rules is very important.
Is there a place to find what your reputation is for your domain or your IP? Is there a grading available, or is it just sort of don't do bad stuff?
Did you hear that, Siva?
Yeah. Yeah. So there are certain organizations that are actually watching the emails that are being sent out, meaning every email that you're sending out, blasting out, is being monitored, right? The recipient servers are looking at it and they're passing the report. So the organizational servers are across the world. They're monitoring every domain. They're monitoring every IP address that's being utilized for that. And they would list out the IP address or the domain address. If it is, like if they send that it's bad or something going on which is wrong. I mean, it may not be deliberate sometimes. I'll give you an example. One of the customers that we were talking to, they had a logo in their email, and logo is fine, right? I mean, you would never think that logo is an issue. But the problem was the logo was hosted on a website given by their marketing agency, and marketing agency never looked at the domain and it got blacklisted. So who is the sufferer? The logo, the customer who is actually sending out that email didn't know that the domain is blacklisted where the logo is being hosted. So these are the small things. And also maybe if you do not have SSL certificate, maybe it got expired, and that could be a potential issue as well. So there are small issues that are not deliberate, may also have a ripple effect on your domain and IP. And we have a tool. I can explain how this can be monitored with a tool that MassMailer provides, but there are other tools as well in the industry that you can take a look. All right. So now again, talking about the deliverability itself, I highlighted 4 things here, which I thought that are very important. That we always work very hard for this. One is the content. So when we are writing, we always make sure that the content is readable and it is simple enough. But sometimes, without knowing, we use certain words that may be considered as a spammy word, right? It doesn't need to be like a sales related emails. It can be a regular email, but still certain words are not really encouraged, and you got to really know what those words are, and if there is any way you can actually rephrase the sentence or like replace those words, it's actually good for you. And the second thing is the list itself. So the people that you're actually sending out emails to, as you know, everyone, they're moving to different companies. So at a 3-month period, you can always see that anywhere between 10 to 30% email list is kind of gone, meaning they may not be in the same company. So every 3 months, we strongly recommend that you would actually take a look at your list, clean it up. And also when you're cleaning it up, there are certain best practices that you got to follow, who to really send emails. It's not just about the email format. There are certain emails that are short-lived, meaning some people use the temporary emails, never send emails to those kind of things, email addresses. And also catch-all seems like, let me explain what it means. So let's say if you're sending out email to a company, they have an alias, such as info@abc.com. It's not recommended to send emails to those kind of the email addresses, even though it is valid. So especially when you're sending out mass email, it is discouraged not to send. And sometimes what happens is they may have an alias just to capture some spammers, which you're not aware of. That's called catch-all address. So it's very important that you always clean your list every 3 months, at least, and then leave out the ones that are not valid, and few other unwanted or unrecommended, unadvisable status values. So we always recommend to set it only to the valid ones. And the third thing is domain authentication. Again, not really getting into too much technical here. All it means is that when you're sending out email from abc.com domain, you got to authenticate yourself. It's more like a certifying yourself with the domain, saying, hey, I own this domain and I'm sending emails using this domain, right? And similarly, any links that you're actually having in your own email, we strongly recommend that you brand it and also secure it. That's the right way to actually send out emails. And same thing when it comes to sending out email, as you know, every email server would have its own IP address, such as, let's say you got an email from Gmail. Yeah, Gmail must be using some email servers which have an IP address. Similarly, if you're using an email tool, you got to make sure that there are 2 ways that you can actually send emails: via shared IP address or a dedicated IP address. If you're a serious sender, and especially if you're sending out a lot of emails, and if you want to secure the reputation, it is always recommended that you actually go with a dedicated IP address and then warm it up, for a few weeks, and eventually build up the strong reputation for your own domain and the IP. So that's the recommended approach. Now, talking about reputation, first and foremost thing is you don't want to get blacklisted. Again, I told few points on one, how one can get blacklisted, how a domain can get blacklisted. So it's not end of the world. Even if a domain gets blacklisted, you can always go back to the organization that has listed your domain and IP and show them a valid reason why you messed up the campaign and why I got into the blacklist. So as long as you can provide them a valid reason, they'll give you a few weeks time, so you can actually take care of those best practices once again and just get off from the blacklist. The opt-outs are very important. This is something which I always see some customers saying that, hey, I don't want to put the opt-out link in my email because I don't want anybody to unsubscribe. Rather, it's the other way around. You should actually put the opt-out let the people unsubscribe from your emails. Do not send emails to the people who do not want to hear from you. That's the key thing. Otherwise, what happens is the spam complaints are very serious, meaning somebody is actually flagging you as a spammer. That actually takes a long way. There's no way you can actually remove that. You can't request Gmail to remove a spam report by a person. That's how it is. So it's always better to keep the opt-out link, making sure that it's easy for the customers, the recipients to opt out. And talking about the complaints, this is what the theory says. Whenever you're sending out email, make sure that they opt in to your email. Meaning, let's say you go to a trade show and you capture a bunch of cards. You're really not asking them, hey, can I send an email? You're just capturing the card and you're sending emails, right? Which sounds authentic, and it's okay to do that. So when you say opt-in list, what it means is that making sure that somebody filled up your website or form and they're giving you handed over the card. You're not really using a purchase list, right? But people keep asking, hey, for my business purpose, I have to purchase list. How do you really handle? The best way to really handle that scenario is to make sure that you're not really sending out any sales email, making sure that the content is more personal, and send it in low volume. Don't just go send out 100,000 emails to a purchase list. That's a big no-no. You should always keep the volume low and make sure that these are kind of sent in batches. That's the right way to do it, and make sure that you have a big opt-out button in the email so they can opt out if they don't want to hear from you. So that is very, very important. And also when you're sending out email, make sure that you have full signature, not just the name. Again, even if it's a personal, the tone is personal in the email, that's okay to have a full signature, not just the name. At least have the phone number, email address, the company name, the domain, and all that. And if it's okay, you can also put your picture. That sounds more personal, actually. And don't worry about images being in the email. I know it is not recommended, but as long as the image is not too heavy, it's okay to send images in the email. And then the email from, we talked about it, making sure that the from email address that you're sending is completely authenticated end-to-end, and test it out, and that's very important. So these are like a high level, the points that I would always recommend to really follow the compliance. Okay. And then now talking about MassMailer, it's a native Salesforce app through which you can actually send out mass emails, whether it is a single email or unlimited emails, email alerts, anything you would want to send out via Salesforce to a standard object or a custom object. You can do that. You can also send file attachments. And we do have some email deliverability tools that I'm going to show it to you, through which you can actually make sure that your email reputation is intact. And how does MassMailer help nonprofits? It could be, use case scenario could be the fundraising, renewal notices, reminders. You can have donor communication sent out, newsletters, community engagement, any kind of a workflow email alerts, and you want to track them for kind of an outreach campaign. It could be a drip campaign also. And also you can manage the reputation. That's a key thing. And other advantages, it's very easy because it's a native tool. So there's not much learning that you have to have. Scalable, it could be one person or 1,000 people using the app. That's not a problem. We also have the detailed statistics that you can actually track, and also the email events. We do support opt-outs for like with the email preferences. I got the drip campaign, the file attachment feature as well. So some of the features that I think a nonprofit would like to have. These are some of nonprofit and education customers that we got on the short list. Okay, so when it comes to a quick demo here, it's not going to take much time. I would take a look. I would actually show you the deliverability tool that we have, through which you can actually monitor your domain and IP reputation. check the deliverability score, look at the compliance, and also maybe a quick run through on the outreach to send emails. I think will help you as well. And then we can take quick questions after that. Let me switch to the Salesforce. I hope you all can see this. I can try to maximize this, if that's okay. All right. So what you see here, this is Lightning version. I just opened up the MassMailer email monitor plugin. So it says email deliverability test. So you would fill out this form. This is not a real email. You're just sending out a test to really figure out, hey, how is my email doing, right? You just fill up what domain or the industry you belong to, and how many people you're actually sending out email to, and maybe the actual the country that you're sending email to, and then the actual email template. So I may not have a real good looking template, but I'll just pick whatever that I have in the system right now, and the language, right? You just fill this form. All you need to do is click on this button called Test Email Deliverability, right? It's going to send this content to the backend engine. It takes time to really give you the results. It may be anywhere between 5 to 10 minutes sometimes. So let's keep it working. And I have an example report that I have here. So you will receive a link in the email with the link to the report, something like this, right? This is a previous one that I ran. So let's just go ahead and analyze. So it's giving you, I've run a test on the subject, what I'm trying to avoid them. And then it's giving me deliverability, the index. It says 82.32% going to go to inbox, and then 17.68 is going to go to spam filters. And it highlights what are the problems with the actual email. So one of them is the vocabulary and copywriting. It's saying that, hey, use all caps is avoided, meaning don't use all caps anytime. And then it's highlighting certain words here. So, for example, it says that, hey, don't use this word avoid because it's one of the discouraged words, and it's saying, hey, these are the recommended words, right? And it's also highlighting these words as well, and it's got some body content also. It's highlighting certain words there. So it's kind of giving you an indication on what could be a problematic content in your email. Also, if there's a problem with the coding and layout, it highlights. Sometimes it may be very tough to really take care of the HTML changes. So if it is, that's okay. Most likely it may not be too high of a percentage, especially if you're using MassMailer Template Builder. And it will also highlight if there's any problem with the links. If at all you have any links, those are not protected, it may highlight them. So those are the three things that it actually gives you the information about. And then infrastructure, very key thing again, if you're using a specific IP address or a domain, making sure that the sending IP address is not blacklisted is a key thing. And it highlights if at all it's blacklisted, it's actually going to give you that information. You can also look up, and you can see this question mark symbol many places. Anytime you have any question about something, just click on that and click on more information. It actually gives you complete details on what that section is all about. Read through that and try to learn about email deliverability. Go back and you'll also see certain guides and then the various sections of the report. It actually highlights, for example, content. There are certain the topics that are giving you information about. For example, why all caps is not recommended, something like this. Even in the URL, it's not recommended. Why is it, right? So you can actually go through this. It's quite handy help tool. And then we also look at your SPF, DKIM, and DMARC. Even though I really didn't dig into the specific technology terms here, all you can kind of imagine about this SPF, DKIM, and DMARC is it's an infrastructure, the email infrastructure that is put in place, and the security control around that. So organizations, the bigger organizations who help this with this internet right from 2000 or early or mid 19 1995 onwards, they come up with certain policies. It's called Standard Policy Framework. DKIM is a domain keys, and DMARC is a policy that you would put in place to say to the world that, hey, what kind of emails they should reject. You are actually letting the internet know. So these are the policies that you would want to define, and we help you with this, defining this SPF and the DKIM and the DMARC as a DNSSecOps. Yeah. And then the compliance is another key thing, wherein which you would want to look at the actual the compliance with respect to the cookies. Do you have any problematic cookies in the domains that you're actually using? If there are some cookies that are problematic, you can take a look at it and then try to see if you can fix them. And finally, most important, when you're sending out email, is this email rendering properly in any of the email client? So there's certain popular clients that we, by default, would enter them to you, and then you can take a look at it. Anything that's not there, you can actually request by clicking on this button, such as request. And it's going to render it real time and it gives that information. Why is it important for you to look at this? Because sometimes if you're using custom HTML and the layout may or may not render properly into the email client, that itself makes your email as a spammy email. So it's very important that you actually look at this quite often. And if you're using MassMailer Template Builder, most likely 99.99% you would not have an issue, but it's always good to look at this. And we do have certain popular web client, the desktop client, and also the actual mobile client that we let you take a look. So this is more like a tool that you actually can use with MassMailer. So now you can see that it took time to really analyze, and there is a problem with the content and the layout and the link quality as well. It highlighted certain issues. This is again like a, what do you call this, is a demo instance, and obviously I do foresee certain issues there because everything is not set up properly in this demo issue. And same thing, maybe it has highlighted certain issues with the infrastructure as well. So basically, this is how it actually lists out. So if there's any problem with the IP address, it's going to highlight why this is blacklisted, right? So it's showing certain domains. And same thing, I think the link quality, it was actually showing you certain problems with the links right here, and you can take a look at them and try to fix some of them if possible, right? So this is about
Sorry, Steve, we got a quick question.
Do any other email campaign platforms integrate into Salesforce, or is MassMailer kind of the only one?
Oh, there are a lot of tools in AppExchange. I think if you go to AppExchange, you can find a lot of email tools that are integrating. But I think the differentiator between MassMailer and other tools is our tool is native to Salesforce. That actually makes it easy for the users to do everything right within Salesforce. So there's no integration required.
Were you asking more about for like things like SurveyMonkey or Constant Contact?
Yeah, I was just wondering if others integrate similarly, or if MassMailer is the only one that integrates fully into Salesforce.
Yeah, good question. I think we should talk about that after this. But I know that my org uses Marketing Cloud, so that's totally like way beyond, like way bigger than I think most nonprofits need.
Yeah.
And I know that there's some other nonprofits that use like Constant Contact and SurveyMonkey, but I'm not quite sure about their integration. So this is the only one I've seen so far, at least, that is native within the Salesforce platform.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Steve, go ahead.
Yeah. All right. So again, I think it is best if I actually just walk you through, not that it was my intent to really show you the entire product, but maybe one quick flow could really give you an understanding of how you can send emails via MassMailer. So the outreach wizard is quite easy and intuitive that you can go through the steps. So right now we support email, but we are expanding to SMS and other features as well eventually. So you would just go to the next step, in which you can actually pick the target audience. It could be the contact or lead, or any other custom object that has got email address, or a standard object that's got email address. We support them. Just select what object you want to send email to and what is the specific list view that you can create using MassMailer list view, which is quite advanced. And then you select your target list, and then you go to the email template step, in which You can select the email template that you already stored within Salesforce, provided those are text-based or HTML-based. Or you can actually just select the template that you created using MassMailer template builder, which is quite advanced again. It's a drag and drop editor. So once you select that, it shows up into the editor right here. Again, you can see merge field section here. If you want to have any merge fields, you can select the specific object and then figure out what is the specific merge field. So for example, you want to send out email to contact and you want to address by first name. Just pick what that field is, and this is the merge field. And then you can just go to the content and say, hey, I want to add dear contact first name. That's how you're actually addressing. And you can also add more sections here. You can drag and drop right there, and then you can add the content items. So it's all possible to do it right here. Once you have made any changes, you just have to click save button, hit that save button, and then go to the next step. And then here you can actually upload files. It could be from your computer or from Salesforce. And once it is done, you could actually go to the sender options, wherein which you can send it as a logged in user. You can define a global sender, or you can actually send it as a record owner. You can send it on behalf of someone, or complete custom, meaning you want to send it from like the from name is coming from a field. And the address is coming from, again, a field from the object or from the user. So this is quite advanced. It's getting more advanced in the next version too. You can also send, I'll pick logged in user for now. You can also do CC if you have like primary, secondary, or spouse email address on the same object. You can also do CC, and also you can do BCC for compliance purposes. And then delivery options, again, you can send it now or schedule later. You can send it now without giving the date and time. You can also have the email preferences. So if it is specific email type, say newsletter, if you don't want anybody to receive newsletter who opted out only from newsletter, you can actually select this option. And IP pool is more advanced in nature. If you want to have different IP addresses for various purposes, such as transactional emails, you want to use a different IP versus marketing. You can create an IP pool and then select that at some time. You can also have unsubscribe link, and you can suppress the event logging. And then finally, you could review all your work. You can also do a quick preview. You can also send a test email before you send out the real email, and then click finish. And that's how you can actually just send out a quick campaign. Everything is tracked right within Salesforce itself, meaning so this is a outreach campaign record, which holds all the campaign information, who is the recipient, template, sender, delivery, statistics, all of that information. And similarly, the actual the record itself will have the email status values, and also the activity gets stored. The email status value is more like all the opens and clicks, and if it is dropped, it also shows why it dropped, anybody unsubscribed or group unsubscribed. All those events are stored right here, and every event is kind of interrelated to the specific campaign and the respective object, so that the reports are quite easy for you to run. So that is kind of a key thing. And of course, you could also send emails from the contact itself or any object itself by clicking on this button called Send via MassMailer. It works the same way as before. So similarly, we do support campaign. You can also use Salesforce campaign. We also support the Salesforce list views. So various ways we support you to send emails, whatever fits in your use case scenario. So I'll stop it there and open up for any questions that you may have.
How does it work well with Outlook Sync, the sync to Outlook, or does it conflict? How do you manage the emails? Are they independent of each other?
So if you're talking about using Outlook as your client, and that's okay, that's just the client, right? But this is an outgoing email application, meaning you can send emails via Salesforce using MassMailer. But if you want to sync any of the responses that you're getting, you can always use your Outlook plugin that you can purchase something from App Exchange that can sync emails between Outlook and Salesforce.
Is that what you were asking?
Sort of. What was that? The last.
There's a something on the App Exchange called an Outlook Sync that can help you deal with the responses and then put them back into Salesforce.
Oh.
But is that?
Yeah, that was what I was kind of.
Okay. Yeah, because you would use this. It sounds like to send things out, and if they respond to it, if it doesn't come in here, that would be my question. Then if you're using Outlook, then they could probably bring it back.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And then
so
okay.
Go ahead.
Well, I had another unrelated question, but so the other unrelated question is, if you have different newsletters and they unsubscribe from one, how do you manage whether you want to unsubscribe from all of them or just specific ones as the end user? Like if I'm
go ahead.
So if I'm receiving the email and I want to unsubscribe from that newsletter but not from another newsletter, how would I do that?
So typically the way the end user preference would work is you can define what those unsubscribed groups are. It could be newsletter, it could be product news, marketing, and donor communication, high level category. If they unsubscribe from newsletter, and if the email that you're sending out is another newsletter, so then they're unsubscribed, right? You don't want them to receive another one. So typically, nobody knows what newsletters you're sending, saying, hey, I want to unsubscribe only from quarter one newsletter. That's hard to crack, unless they say, hey, I don't want to receive the next quarterly newsletters from you guys. Can you unsubscribe me? You can manually do it and create a task to, again, put them back in the list. That's a manual process. But otherwise, what we support is the groups. So at a high level, you can segregate what email preference groups that you want to have and define them, and that's what they see when they receive email.
But Siva, so is the groups functionality something that you would expose on the outgoing emails to the end users, and then they basically, when they unsubscribe, then it automatically updates that inside Salesforce?
Yeah, that's how it does. Yeah. So we have something called suppression list. We maintain that right within Salesforce. So anybody who unsubscribed from a specific group, that is actually captured right here. So you can see this example, this particular email address unsubscribed from this particular group. So anytime you're sending out a product news email or product news related email, and that's what you're selecting at the time of sending email, they would not receive it because they already unsubscribed from product news.
Cool.
And I guess in line with that, for nonprofit clients, what do you typically see? Do people typically unsubscribe from like everything, or do they take the time to specify what, like I want newsletters, but not, solicitation emails like that?
I would say that actually depends on your specific nonprofit. Like my nonprofit has, we used to send out 12 different newsletters, and now we've dialed it down to 4. And so there is that granularity of saying, I want to unsubscribe from the 2 to 6-year-old, but I want the 7 to 12-year-old newsletter.
Do people take the time to
They do. We actually have problems before of having people just globally unsubscribe, and they wanted one thing, but not the other thing. And so it actually makes it a lot more sense to granularize it and segment it that way. Yeah.
But you have Marketing Cloud, which has
even before that, we were trying to do something else with it. Yeah, but yeah, it's the global unsubscribe, unless you're like really low functionality and just using like one newsletter or one something that you're sending out. Usually there's at least segmentation between like your programming and your fundraising, and then the service and transaction emails. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff around that.
So if someone just replies unsubscribe me, that's an unsubscribe all, right?
That would depend on again your org, right? Like if they're like unsubscribe me, like you could probably reach back out and say, do you want to unsubscribe from everything or just a specific newsletter? And they might be like, I didn't even know you had the other stuff. So that's an opportunity to kind of notify them of some other offerings you might have as well. See, but what's the, so this is all native on Salesforce. What's the limits? Like, how did you guys get around the limits that Salesforce imposes in terms of emails that are sent out?
We don't use Salesforce email servers. We use something called SendGrid behind the scenes. That's a popular email platform, cloud email platform. So that way we bypass the Salesforce email limit.
So is there a limit to the number of emails I can send out in one batch?
Not in a batch. It's a commercial limit. So maybe I can show you the pricing, how it works. So if you subscribe to MassMailer and you say, hey, I want to send out, or maybe the package that you want to select is, say, 100,000 emails per month, right? And that's your commercial limit. But in one day, if you want to send out 100,000 emails, that's okay with that. But that's the monthly
That's
limit.
per month?
The commercial limit.
That's a monthly limit.
This is per
Okay.
This is a monthly email limit. Yeah.
Okay. And what are, and my next question is, what's the nonprofit discount for people in the room?
Oh, okay. We do have a regular 10% nonprofit discount, but we're happy to give you additional discount if you're coming from this group. Work with me and we'll give you more discount.
Got it. And how should they get a hold of you if they're interested?
Oh, sure. So I have my contact info, I believe, right here. So this is my email address, siva.devaki@massmailer.io. And or if you just go to our website, massmailer.io, and you would find the contact form, you can just submit a form from there. And if you're interested, you can also get on a trial. We have a 15-day free trial. Again, you would see the buttons on the website. Otherwise, these are links. You can just say /install after the website domain, and you can see that. So you could get hold of me very easily. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. So you can send an email to me as well, and I could respond back immediately.
Sorry, anyone else have any questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Does your product offer any lead scoring?
Not at the moment, but that's certainly in the roadmap. We are working on that lead scoring aspect. So you will be able to customize the scoring as well. Let's say the default weightage that we give is, 2 for click and 1 for open kind of a thing, and you can always customize it based on your needs. Something that we're working on. It's in the roadmap.
Yeah, if we wanted to link email campaigns to individual contacts, do you have like a contact ID? Is there a way we can look up the contact ID that goes along with the results? See if they opened or clicked on specific emails?
Oh, yeah. So I was showing you that. So everything is kind of tied together, meaning, let's say you go to the contact and it's got, say, email status value such as open, right? Or any other value right there. And you open the status record and it is interrelated to the campaign that you ran and also the contact it is related to. And if it is related to an account, it will show account as well.
What about reporting? Is there a way to customize reports?
Oh, yeah. So all the reports are customizable because we have all these objects as standard Salesforce objects. We do provide certain standard reports from MassMailer, but you can definitely customize the reports that we provide. Folders, MassMailer reports. Okay, so these are the basic reports that we provide, such as email status report, outreaches, suppression list, email status with outreach campaign or regular Salesforce campaign. All these reports are available. So you can always customize them and build your own if needed.
So some time. Anyone else have any other questions? Siva, I think that's it. Thank you so much for presenting from Hawaii.
Oh, sure. Thank you so much. And finally, I just want to kind of walk you through this pricing, if you don't mind. So the pricing works as how many users are actually going to use. So like if you have 10 users or 100 users, You don't need to buy all 10 or all 100. It's only those people who are actually going to use MassMailer. Those would have to have access. So that's $49.99 per user per month for the full license. We are coming up with a read-only license. That's half the price. And then you would choose what email package you would want to go with. We recommend going with a dedicated IP. But even if you go with the essential package, if your volume is low, you can always add the dedicated IP for additional purpose. So these are kind of various packages that we have. And if you want to add the dedicated IP address on this plan, you can add it by $79.99. This comes with the email monitor when you add the dedicated IP address. And the pro plan already have the email monitor and also the dedicated IP address included. So that's how the pricing works. But we can always give you a quote once we know what your requirement is. Okay. All right. Wonderful. Once again, thank you so much for your time, and have a great new year in 2020. And any questions, feel free to contact me. Thank you so much once again for the opportunity. Take care.
All right. Thanks, Eva.
Bye.